the Secret Entourage Academy episode. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Kimanzi Constable, a self-published author that actually recently got published in 2013 with his book, Are You Living or Existing? And he's here today to tell us a little bit about how he went from being an ordinary family guy to being not just a self-published author, but an actual fully published author with a big publishing house, as well as actually grow multiple six-figure businesses. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, very, very cool to have you on, Constable. We appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me, and I don't know if you realize this, but back in the day when I was just getting started out, I was on the Horror Reporter, and you guys had put out a request there just for experts to comment on an article you did, and I responded, and you actually ran it, and that kind of gave me a little blip on the map, so I appreciate that.
Oh, good. Actually, I did not know that, so you just gave me a lot of perspective for this too. So I'm glad. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the beginning of your journey. I briefly kind of looked over your stuff, and I understand, and I want to discover your journey with our audience rather than knowing everything from the scratch. But can you walk us a little bit through your beginnings before you owned the business? Kind of what fears you had and how you kind of moved on to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it started when I was 19 years old, and I was a bread delivery guy. And I had seen another bread delivery guy who wasn't in uniform, and I asked him, "Hey, man, what's the deal? Why aren't you guys wearing a uniform?" And he said, "We're an independent operator." And I had no clue what that meant, but he explained it to me. And he said, "For all intents and purposes, we're business owners. We buy the franchise, but we're responsible for all our own expenses." And I'm like, "Hey, that sounds like something I'd love to do." He's like, "Well, you're going to have to invest $250,000. And at that time, I didn't have $250,000. But he did say that since they were fully independent, they didn't have anybody to cover their vacation routes when they wanted to go on vacation. And that's where my first business started. A light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, I could cover your vacation route. So I started with this one driver. And from there, I did a good job, and word kind of spread. And those guys hadn't been on vacation in like 13 years, working 7 days a week for 13 years. So I went from just having this one guy, and in 2 months, I had a business that was bringing in, the first year brought in $55,000 at 19 years old. So that was a ton of money for me. And I was a business owner. I mean, they wrote me the checks. I had my own company. It was all new. It was all fresh. And it was great at first. And the business grew rather quickly. It grew to $500,000 in revenue. I was operating in 3 different states. I had 5 guys working for me. The only problem with all that was that I wasn't smart at all. I didn't know anything about running a business. And it wasn't long before I bought, fancy cars. I had fully loaded cars. I had all the toys. We were always going somewhere. Like we were